The Twilight Garage podcast is brought to you by The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Chorrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Twilighters! Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Casey Fields and I, dear sweet producer Alex, in this thing we kill. Twilight Garage, because literally, we're in my garage, bro. Everyone's like, hey, nice set. I'm like,
yeah, we're not down in LA right now in a studio.
No, there's a Harley like literally touching the table that Alex is set up on right now. It's pretty awesome. Again, coming into our home. We're coming into your home. Really glad about that turn of events. Really appreciate all your great feedback on our last episode involving our dear friend, Mr. James Dawson, who, if you don't know about him, he's down in Argentina doing a lot of great works trying to help some people with these different clinicas and education and awareness about health concerns in that area. Now, what are we getting into, dear friend?
Well, I just want to take a second and thank the Twilighters for just sticking with us for 46 episodes now. And also want to thank the haters as well. And just as a little thank you to the haters. I got this because we are the dumpster fire known as Twilight Garage.
Wow. All right. We're going to have this thing illuminated here shortly. I think it deserves some illumination. I think this is an affirmation. I look at it as a cheap trash disposal. I don't see a dumpster fire as anything bad. I think it's a great thing.
But thanks for sticking with us. Please let your friends know. We got some exciting stuff coming up, some great guests and people that have pretty good sized podcasts on their own. So we're really excited. But today I wanted to talk a little bit, and you guys don't know a little inside baseball. We don't always go over what we're going to talk about on the show. So I'm surprising our dear friend DR here with a little Terry milkshake, a little Terry Melcher discussion.
All right. So here's my first take on Terry Melcher. Hey, Mom. I need a job.
So Terry Melcher was the son of famous TV actress Doris Day, son of Al Jardine, aka Melcher, all kinds of confusing stuff about who his actual biological father was. Some people even believe it was the cult leader Sun Young Moon.
Well, he is kind of a pie-faced loser with no accountability, so maybe.
Yeah, so Terry was good friends with Dennis Wilson, Greg Jacobson, right? He was partying over at Wilson's house there in Pacific Palisades. And sometime around the late summer, early fall of 1968, Charlie and the family allegedly met Terry Melcher. Now, some researchers have found out from people like Mike Love, a member of the Beach Boys. It's been said that Manson and Wilson first met at Gary Hinman's house at Topanga Canyon. So we really don't quite know when Melcher came into the picture with Charlie. But allegedly that first time they met, Dennis gave Terry a ride home. Terry was living at home at the Cielo home with his girlfriend, Candace Bergen, at the time. And Charlie's in the back seat playing the guitar, and they dropped Charlie off. And this is supposed to be the first time that Charlie stepped foot on the Cielo Drive residence.
Well, that's, for me, one of the things that gets twisted up in different people's stories, in different narratives, I'm sure for all different reasons. Do you feel that's true?
Yeah. More than likely.
That's a beautiful picture. Think about it. You got these musicians. Say whatever you want about Charlie. He had kind of a dated style, whatever. But I think in person, the universal thing I've heard about people who've heard Charlie plays, there's a certain charm to it. In the moment, it works. And I think this whole thing of the Manson family, as it's collectively known, not being remembered as a kind of a third tier choral group in the folk vein, much of what was happening in that particular time, in that particular area. I think Charlie being friends with Mama Cass. I think our dear friend Catherine Gillis, aka Cappy, who I met a few times throughout my life, coming from the Buffalo Springfield camp. I think Charlie, having had interactions that are proven, multiple interactions, a guy doesn't give you an expensive Triumph motorcycle,
Neil Young,
for nothing. That just doesn't happen. There's clearly time spent. There's affection. You give a dude a motorcycle, that means something. Okay. He's never, ever retracted his affectionate statements towards Charlie at all. He said, hey, man, think the guy legitimately had talent. I think he was a contender, whatever. For me, the appearance of Melcher, that's validation that this was a musical group that was potentially bubbling up throughout the LA scene. I think it's hard to get a read on it now because of people's positions and their lack of desire to be in any way, shape, or form associated with the Manson family.
You nailed it. I like it that you said that it was a group. It wasn't just that Melcher was interested in Charlie as a solo artist. He said in interviews that it was a Charlie and 20 other singers, other voices, right?
I like that you pulled that particular thing because, again, you go through this testimony, you go through these words quickly. What did you just do? You just ran that over. Now, elaborate on that. That's huge, friends.
I think Dennis Wilson was the main advocate because he believed in Charlie's music, right? So he's promoting this guy as the wizard. He's great on the guitar, fantastic songwriter, lyrics, the whole deal.
And he's doing it through improvisation.
And anytime,
stunning when you see.
Anytime Charlie busts out that guitar, the girls are all sitting around. They know the songs. They're singing back up, adding to the harmony.
Pretty good. Yep. It stands up.
Some of them are professionals themselves, like Catherine Scher.
Yeah. She had that charity. Wait a minute.
Charity Shane.
Yes. And it was a passable record. Yep. She had a 45 out.
Bobby Beausoleil was an accomplished musician as well.
Having passed through all different types.
We know Steve Grogan is a talented guy.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that Grogan was able to pull off the Lies record. How long had Charlie been in jail, would you estimate, before that was recorded, the Lies record?
I'm guessing maybe only like 2 or 3 months. Because I think that they were getting that going around December of '69, maybe early January. So they were trying to raise money for Charlie's defense fund.
So it was hand in hand with some of the Hendrix.
Yeah, and allegedly they went to Doris Day, and they wanted to get her to fund Charlie's legal defense. And I don't know how that went. I know that they did get some money. I don't know if the songs at that point were sold to Phil Kaufman, because I understand that Phil Kaufman owned much of Charlie's music.
That's correct.
But from what I've read, is that the girls were selling copies of the Lie album right down there on the sidewalk
They
in front of the
said,
court.
well, they said right there in Inyo County, and that's fairly immediately. I thought, I didn't understand when I was reading that. That really took me aback. I was at the Eastern California Museum there in Independence, California, the first time I checked that article out.
Mm.
The people who run that museum are absolutely wonderful. You've got Sean, the main director there, and then you've got Ms. Horton, who's Heather Horton, who's one of the main people who interface there. Really nice place.
We want to actually bring the Twilighters there at some point.
I'm really hoping so. You've seen here on the channel some of my shorts I did from there when we got to meet up with our dear friend Tracy Kuhn. But in doing so, that's when I was able to flesh those details out.
Yeah. So Terry, no doubt about it, funded Charlie's recording sessions, organized them, set them up multiple times. So Terry actually is lying quite a bit, and I'll get more to that during his testimony. But even as close to the murders as like a week or two before, Melcher was funding recording of Manson at Brother Records, the studio that's located at Brian Wilson's home. We're talking very end of July going into August, and we know what happened then.
Well, that is one of my pet theories. I feel there's quite a bit of recorded material that was in Brian Wilson's vault. I don't know if they're going to use these Palisade fires as an excuse to say they were destroyed or they didn't exist or whatever, but I think there's at least one album, if not two records of Manson's material. I think they were promised a great deal. In my speaking with Lynn, it's humbling because I'm trying to learn this stuff myself. I tend to take things personally. The things that she talked about with Terry, she stuck to what is commonly known as the reason why they left the Will Rogers estate where they'd been staying with them, why they disassociated from him in the end, and these events, they're all covered. And it's sad from her point of view when you hear it. When you think about it from the standard materialistic way, you're like, God, these guys were just like, yeah, they were fun, but geez, the dude wrecked his Ferrari and they're fixing their teeth, and the guys had what? They had like venereal diseases. What? It just looks terrible on the outside. But when I've heard Lynn's recollections, she genuinely had affection for Dennis. And you could tell that was reciprocal because Lynn doesn't give it up. And that's where people portray her as salty in films, like Dakota Fanning, like everybody.
Yeah.
And that's because of that lack of initial trust. And I think it's warranted in that it gets portrayed in this bad way. But when he didn't show up for this meal they prepared, when he didn't reciprocate their love that they put out there, that they've been having back and forth, but then all of a sudden they're just doing things and he's not reciprocating anymore. They got him a camper. They got him all these different things. Juanita Wild Bush's camper. Did he take it anywhere? Did he do anything with it?
So, Melcher would like everyone to believe that his meetings with Manson were just on a couple of occasions.
And really isolated, not personal.
Yeah, but we know this isn't true because there are people that have no reason to lie, like Dina Martin, the daughter of Dean Martin, right?
Absolutely.
Who talks about parties that Melcher was at, that Manson were at Dennis Wilson's house. She talks about parties that Terry hosted up at the Cielo house that Tex was at. There's no doubt about it that Terry was involved. Tom O'Neill talks about the Golden Penetrators going out to the club, right? And Charlie just tearing a rug on the dance floor.
Everyone always says that too. And why would they lie about that? It's like there's the Grateful Dead concert. There's all these different nights, the whiskey, all these different nights where Charlie is known to just have these spontaneous reactions to music. And I think that's a physiological phenomenon. I think Charlie had a physical sensitivity and a lot of intuitive nature that, hey man, either it was natural or he developed it, where when he would hear music or things that moved him, he would just plug into this kind of what they call an universal energy source, whatever you want to
absolutely
say. Tapping in. And he was great at that. And I think it was infectious. I think the people I know who are like that, the Sean Terrence of the world, people like that, the Dwayne Peters of the world.
Dude, I see people in that world on the Fent.
Oh,
every time I'm on my way out here on Bart, the world could be burning down around them, bro. And they're lounge chaired over in there doing their own thing.
But what I'm saying with Charlie is he just would tap into this energy and be excited and get you excited and translate what was good about what he was taking in his ears and bring it on the physical plane. And that is what these girls loved. They weren't brain rotted, drug addled, bloodthirsty cult member, hippie robot horse controlled by Charles Manson.
Okay, so what I want to drop on you guys, something new. It's been, some of this stuff's been put out there, but it's never been kind of wrapped up.
Is this Melcher stuff?
Yeah, this is Melcher.
Because I don't, before we get off of it, I want to talk Ridgecrest, the Buick, and how late you felt Melcher was around before it continued.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it was Danny DiCarlo. It's in my book.
Dude, I love that guy.
Danny DiCarlo, I believe, said in an interview that after the murders, Melcher showed up at Spawn Ranch and was on his hands and knees, crying and kissing Charlie's feet and begging his forgiveness. Okay.
And why would he lie about that?
Yeah, that's what this is according to DiCarlo, I think.
Who we're going to have on this show.
Then that's fast forward a couple months. We're now out in the desert in September. They're at the base of Goler Wash, and Terry Melcher shows up to visit. The girls flip out. What'd they say? Terry's here. Terry, milkshake, the whole deal. And same type of deal. He's asking Manson's forgiveness. He's seriously in anxiety, a panic state.
He denies ever going to Death Valley. But
next thing you know, they're driving to Ridgecrest to Bud Air car dealership. He's buying Charlie a black 1959 Buick. Why is he buying Charlie this car?
Yeah.
Is this a gift? Is this a act of forgiveness? There it is.
Oh,
Bud Air.
Chevrolet Ridgecrest.
Still there today. I believe it's a Toyota dealership nowadays.
It could be part of what had been the book out Toyota dealership. There's a lot of stuff there. This was on the corner of China Lake Boulevard, and there's a street called Las Flores right there. And there was next to it was the Western gas station where my dad used to see the girls and different people soliciting change. And that was just shocking for the time.
Mm.
Girls begging, like white kids
Mhm.
asking people who aren't that much older than them, because my dad was in his 20s, right? So these girls are coming up to him like, I always envisioned them in like, bikini tops or whatever, but they were probably just in like dirty ass t-shirts, begging for money for gas. That's how my dad put it, begging. Wow. That's how I would always think about that when I would gas up there.
And I've seen people on forums talking about the residents of Ridgecrest said that they saw them hanging out the Foster Freeze, which falls right in line with who Charlie was, loving milkshakes and root beer floats and stuff.
Absolutely. The Zuzu's, that place is still there. It's currently La Fiesta, which has been a Mexican food business in the town for a long time. It's not the original owners, but some of the dishes remain the same. You can get some of their shredded beef. It tastes exactly as it did in the 70s. And I actually have the milkshake maker that allegedly made the Manson
I
family's
think you even
milkshakes.
featured that in a short earlier on Twilight Garage.
I did. And then
Yeah.
I had painted the kitchen of that place one time. As a kid, I was just kind of doing random work around town. And this guy said, "Hey, man, would you paint the kitchen?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And I got to make all kinds of milkshakes because they had an interesting thing. Their menu included hamburgers
and this Foster's Freeze was one street over, right, from the main drag.
No, it was dead ass on China Lake Boulevard.
Okay, yeah,
one of the best pieces of real estate. Like I said, the building still stands. You can still see that it was a Foster's Freeze, but they'd blown out some of the walls because there was a drive-through. And it had big, big, expansive windows with the aluminum panes. And it was right next to the original Bridge Theater, which was the actual movie theater in town, a single screen. It's where we saw Star Wars, all the big films of the day, Jaws.
So the part that a lot of people aren't familiar with Terry is that in November of '69, he was taking a shower and he got a visit. He'd knock on the door or whatever. He comes to the door and it's a couple of investigators from LAPD. And they're asking him, "Did you ever know a guy named Charles Manson who had a bunch of girls?" He said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, we just arrested him and those girls. They're up in Inyo County." And Inyo County investigators, they want to talk to you. And he's like, "Wow, why? I only met Charlie a couple times. Why would he want to talk to me?" And he says, "Well, they got all these girls in custody, and these are teenagers under the age of 18, and multiple of them say that you impregnated them. They're pregnant with your kid right now." So alarm bells, go off in Terry's head, and he realizes all of a sudden that he's in a major situation. Inyo County investigators haven't reached out to him yet, but they're on his tail, about to bring him in up to Inyo County.
Yeah.
Right? He's got all these young girls that are saying that, he did stuff with them. Well,
Mother.
Here's where Vincent Bugliosi steps in.
Tell you what I'll do.
Bugliosi gets in touch with Inyo County DA's office, says, "Terry Melcher is going to be one of my main witnesses in my trial against Charles Manson and these women and Tex Watson for these murders. I need you to back off of this statutory R word case." And that's the direction he was going to go. Now, at this point, Vincent Bugliosi was planning on making his main strategy of attack against the defendants the Terry Melcher revenge narrative. The Tate murders were committed because they wanted to either scare Terry Melcher or send a fear through Hollywood, whatever. Bugliosi didn't know at that time that Charlie had visited Terry at his new place in Malibu. This whole narrative that Charlie showed up to the Tate house believing that Melcher still lived there, or that he sent killers to the house believing Melcher was there, is completely false. And Aaron Stovitz, which was the lead prosecutor in the case, Bugliosi was second chair. Aaron Stovitz went to his boss, the district attorney of Los Angeles, Elwell Younger, and said, this is the direction that Vince wants to take this case. And it's just BS. We can't go this route. We're never going to land a conviction. But with Younger's advice, he said, throw that out. You need to come up with another way to try these people, which is when now Bugliosi ushers in the helter-skelter narrative. Around this time, Stovitz gets removed from the case. Bugliosi gets promoted to the lead prosecutor. They bring in Stephen Kay as his second chair. But he needed Melcher out of jail. He didn't want Melcher being prosecuted in Inyo County for anything, because he wanted to use him in the trial. Now, come trial time, Melcher said very little. He couldn't expose Melcher on the stand, because if the defense would have gotten more from him off of Bugliosi's examination, they could have asked Melcher all kinds of questions. Absolutely. So Bugliosi kept it to, when did you meet Manson? Where did you meet him? All, and just basically a really short examination.
What a disservice to everyone involved. The rich guys always skate. The victims get further victimized, and it's just a real drag. I mean, the whole golden penetrator thing, was one thing that I hope to talk to Tom O'Neill about when he visits us here in the near future on Twilight. I've been really enjoying him on the No Sense Makes Sense page.
Shout out, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, we really do appreciate you, sir. Really appreciate you taking Vince Bugliosi apart. Whether people give credence to some of your theories or not, I think your research and who you are, it deserves a level of respect. The attention you've brought to the case, the thoughtfulness and thoroughness of your examinations, whether or not people agree with them. The fact that they're out there as conversation points, I think, is a good thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you here. But in the meantime, I think for me, Melcher's continued contact, his depth of understanding of their movements, where they would be, where they wouldn't be. I believe what we've just said in regards to him begging forgiveness, not once, but a minimum of 2 times, physically falling out and basically kissing his feet like, I want to live. So this goes back to these different theories that I think can be explained through understanding that there is no singular motive in any of these murders associated with the Manson family, be they Hinman, Tate, or LaBianca, as they are commonly referred to.
Do I believe Terry Melcher impregnated any of those girls? No. Do I believe that Terry Melcher committed SA with some of these girls? Yes, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And he was in love with who?
Ruth Ann Morehouse. According to Jacobson, Greg Jacobson, which is Terry Melcher's best friend at the time, they were both in love with Ruth Ann Morehouse. When Ruth Ann Morehouse was arrested and they couldn't get a hold of her parents, basically she was a feral child, right? Living with the family.
Absolutely. And doing well for herself under the circumstances. It's incredible.
Greg Jacobson and Terry Melcher tried to petition the court to become her legal guardian.
Okay, people, let this sink in. Now, the child is how old at this point?
15, 16 years old.
Right. And they had met her when she was first
14.
Wow. And these two grown men who are in their 30s. Okay. We're going to go bad on Charles Manson, who was just minding his business when this girl's flaky dad shows up, basically blows him. Like, I love you, man. And then Charlie gets a hold of this 14-year-old girl. And as we say here, euphemistically, using Charlie's language, put the rhythm to the girl, right? Put the motion to the girl. And then shortly thereafter, we've got these grown Hollywood moguls.
Yeah.
Trying to oh my
And
goodness.
I'm not speaking out of school here. I'm not looking at a lawsuit from Greg Jacobson. Greg Jacobson said it right on the History Channel documentary. He said, at the time, I was in love with Ruth Ann Morehouse. The guy was married.
They're trying to adopt a teenage girl that they've both had carnal knowledge with on many occasions, apparently.
Terry tried when him in 68, when him and Candace Bergen, the beautiful and talented Candace Bergen,
everything, and you're over here like committing child essay.
Candace is on the cover of like Vanity Fair and Vogue and all these back. She's like one of the it girls in the United States at the time. One of the most
gorgeous, elegant women to ever walk the planet.
And when they get back from Europe, he asked Candace, can we hire Ruth Ann Morehouse to be our live-in maid? And you know, Candace is like, hell no, that's not happening.
That poor woman being defiled by that creep.
Now fast forward into we're going New Year's Eve, 1968, going into 69.
Right.
Terry Melcher hosts this huge party at his residence, right? At the Cielo home. Afterwards, they're cleaning up. He tells Candace, we got to move. She's like, I get it. We got only a couple months left on the lease, so we're going to move. And she's like, when? Tomorrow. We got to get out of here.
And then they try to say it was our domineering housekeeper.
That's what they said. It was our housekeeper, Ruth.
Hey, let's fuck out of here with that.
So, look, man, I'm not trying to completely throw this guy under the bus, but let's just be real about it here.
No, I will right here.
It's important for people to understand that there's much more to Terry Melcher and his association with the family. And if we ever are able to get someone like Ruth Ann Morehouse or Lynette or Sandra Good or anybody in the family, Diane Lake, that are willing to talk, I guarantee they will. They'll say how much more he was involved.
Well,
how much they knew him.
I think that's going to be an up and coming guest soon. Here in 2026, I believe Diane Lake is going to be gracing us with her presence. I'm really excited about that. I've got a lot of questions for her about the desert, about her life with Jack Gardner and his family, about how these things have played out for her, about her reconnections with some of the different ladies.
Mm-hmm.
I know she really looked up to Lynn a lot. And it'd just be interesting to hear some of the less lurid, disgusting things. It's like with Ruth Ann. I have no interest in any of the lurid, nasty stuff. I am more interested about how she mentally navigated that time in her life, what some of the fun, exciting, cool things might have been. Those are the angles that I think are going to be adding to this narrative rather than dirting it up more, because there's plenty of dirt, and I think it belongs on people like the god awful Terry Milkshake Melcher. I think he's the worst kind of human there is. I think his yuckster buddy Greg Jacobson is right there with him on the highway to hell. I think those two guys are just the absolute antithesis of everything one should be as a man, and certainly as a gentleman. That is very,
But don't forget, for $5,000, Greg Jacobson will come on your documentary and he'll talk about this stuff.
Or what about the rumors that Catherine Scher was charging 5 figures? Some have said it's 10,000. The number that's usually thrown around is Catherine Scher charging $20,000 to the Billy Means production. What do you believe on that?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm glad that they got him on there. And anytime we're able to get them on camera talking about stuff is a win.
Well, okay, Diane. I think she stepped back from some of maybe what was pushed on her by the publisher.
Yeah, I believe
Because
so.
it seems like she's not as happy with the book as she first let on. And a lot of the talking points, I think, like what happens in this case a lot is you'll repeat something and then you get good reinforcement for that. And then you repeat it and it becomes its own entity.
Mm-hmm.
And then you begin to question your memories and your own feelings sometimes, and you become disassociated with them. And that's why, for me, when you read Reflection and you see how personal and lovely it is, I think that's the difference between it and other books. You can keep coming back to it. You can keep reading it and reconnecting with it. And that's why this is special. And I'm hoping, as a fan, that when Diane appears here and we speak about Death Valley and we speak about her
The Gardeners too. I want to hear.
well,
about,
that's what I'm saying is that was the next phase, was growing up for the first time with a genuine childhood that she got to continue from before her father's dropout of society, right? Like she was kind of having a normal upbringing for a while. And then it got continued by a wonderful family. They're in Big Pine.
Safe, protected. She's a babysitter. She's a high school kid.
A trusted person, a babysitter. So much love for Diane. And you think about the little bits I've heard from Lynn were that she was sweet, she was sincere, she was smart, she was inquisitive, she was curious, inquisitive in all the right ways, in all the endearing ways, not childish, but childlike. And then if you read in the book and you take it incorrectly, you can understand she didn't have any grounding. Her mom, you need your mother, you need your father, you need these things. Sure, the family was there. Sure, Lynn was good to her. Sure, these people treated her kindly, but you need more. You need your DNA. You need all that up to a certain point, and she'd been robbed of it. And then her character had been exploited, probably even by Melcher and them.
Mm-hmm.
I would think it had sampled the wares. And that's a terrible way to look at it. These girls were monetized. they were objectified and treated terribly by some of these outsiders.
Yep.
And that's why the people who really cared about him get a bad rap. And I think that's really unfortunate. And when she comes here, I hope we could clarify these things with Diane. And then I hope that leads her to work with her writer and friend, who I think she's touring the country with right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I could only assume that's because they're going to work on another piece. But I hope they take that story up, because I think inspiration and individual triumph, when you've been in stressful times of trouble, are the only things that are going to help others.
So I want to wrap this episode up with shout out to George Stimson's channel. Right around the time this is being released, this episode, George is going to be coming out with an episode on Goodbye Helter Skelter's YouTube channel. So please make sure to like and subscribe on George Stimson's show.
Turn on your notifications is why we're bringing this whole thing up. We know you're subscribed. We know you like all his videos. We know you're jocking the comment section to keep him alive on YouTube and keep him working, though he doesn't appear here often.
A lot of work is being done. George is doing a show every couple months, right?
And
so he's putting that kind of work in.
Kind of time, because he's got to consider these things. And when George is saying things, there's a lot of pressure because of his authoritative stance on these things and who he is. If you know his story, if you care about this case, you're well versed with he and his work. And we do suggest you support it. We do suggest you turn these notifications on, because James Dawson is going to return with this whole oh man, they're really going to put this whole blood evidence thing to bed, because man, they did one. What happened? Dude, the internet is like, yeah, boom, 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 blah. People are like, that case is old. How can people be excited or give a shit about? Dude, that blood evidence, you remember how it rocked everybody a couple years ago? People were flipping out. All these podcasters, all these different people across the Manson sphere lost their minds. And then either everyone loved them some James Dawson, or, they love to hate him. And then what happened? George never readdresses anything ever. Why? Because when George Dawson has spoken, you know what I mean? And that's why we love him, because he does that kind of homework. And that's not me making fun of him or anything. No, he is that serious. And that's why we always turn to him or Deb Silva if we need the answers. And for him to come back, and then he did the whole very physical.
There's a lot of love out there for George.
Oh my God! But
you don't hear people bag on George very often,
unless they're crazy or don't care or don't have any love. So my point being, he's never come back and done these addressing shows, because he is the authority. But the story just keeps growing because this blood evidence has so many facets to it.
We'll see what he does.
So much of the story. So George, I just ruined the end of our show being so excited about yours. But thank you so much. We love you. And thanks for tuning in, Twilighters, even though it became the Goodbye Helter Skelter show.
A total knucklehead.